Hi there. Thank you guys for coming, and Grassroots and John, Allison, everybody, thank you for allowing me to come back to Carbondale. It's cool being here for a number of reasons, to see some old friends and family, and I was at a bar the other night, and I was able to buy a whole round of drinks for a few people for cheaper than I could buy myself one beer in Alaska, all right, this story that I'm going to read is called A Terrible Sound. This place has no limes, no celery stalks, no pull tab tickets, not even smoke since it's technically a government building. But it suits me fine because it's dark and I drink beer, haven't gambled in years, and never have cared for cigarettes. She's drunk again, but she orders another double Jack neat and gets me a can of Tui. She's a pretty girl who likes scarves and smells like the holidays. Her name's Daisy. She has a degree in art history from some school I've never heard of in Portland. And she's washing dishes down here at McMurdo Station, Antarctica. She's not special in that regard. This place is full of people just like her, but she's special in the fact that, for whatever reason, she chooses to talk to me. I used to go camping with my Uncle Butch and my dad every summer at this rundown campground, she says. There were signs all over telling you not to feed the chipmunks. One summer when I was 8 or 9, Uncle Butch lured these chipmunks over near us, like 5 of them, with popcorn. She's a close talker when she's been drinking, or maybe she's always a close talker, for all I know. But she scoots in closer to me, and our knees are touching, which is something I am so aware of, it's hard for me to pay attention to what she's telling me. These chipmunks were hanging out with us, listening to Uncle Butch tell the same stories he always told about the Navy and being drunk on a beach in Haiti with a couple of what must have been hookers building sandcastles all night. These cute little guys are right over near us, and I start feeding them too. They were the most adorable things I'd ever seen. Then the next thing you know, my dad pours hot coffee all over one of their heads. You should have heard the terrible sound he made. Not only is she a close talker, but now she puts her hand on my shoulder. She'd probably be looking me in the eyes, but I'm scared if I make eye contact, she'll see things in me she doesn't like. Isn't that a terrible thing to do? I tell her I hate coffee. She's joined me nearly every night here at the bar for the last month and has told me all sorts of things about herself. She told me about how she got that J-shaped scar on her neck from a spider bite when she was 13, and how a boyfriend freshman year in college used to cover it with his hand during sex. And she's told me about growing up Catholic and her dad's porn collection, and about how much she likes making macaroni pictures. I don't remember ever making macaroni pictures, and though I've been familiar with porn and Catholicism, I don't have much to say on the subjects. But she keeps telling me things, which is good, because I'm not good at communicating. Mostly I don't know what to talk about around women, except for my wife, who I don't tell her about. I don't tell her we've been married for the past 14 years, but are now separated. Let's call my wife Maggie. No, let's call her Sam. I don't tell her how Sam played in a roller derby league until she tore an ACL 3 years into our marriage. I don't tell her how Sam was roller skating when we met, roller skating in the parking lot of a Piggly Wiggly with this other girl, a big-chested redhead who would years later threaten to kill me with a broken Labatt bottle. I was on my way to pick up some butter or cigarettes for my mother when I saw them. It was the most innocent-looking thing, 2 young women in skirts and ponytails, laughing the way only girls on roller skates can laugh. I imagine they smelled like bubble gum and went to church. They were the kind of girls you'd see in an ad for juice boxes, the kind of girls I'd like to talk to, only I didn't make much conversation then either. So I walked toward the entrance to the Piggly Wiggly, but I didn't take my eyes off them, and then I stepped in front of a truck. I was on the ground and must have been dazed for a moment, until I heard a woman's voice yell, "Watch where the fuck you are going, cocksucker." I imagined it was the driver of the truck advising me, but when I got my bearings, I saw it was the big-chested redhead speaking with the driver. I looked up and the sun was bright in my eyes, Maybe my vision was blurry from the impact, but when my eyes focused, I was surprised to see the other girl, the one I would marry, standing over me like an angel, or maybe the opposite of an angel. Her face was dark with thick makeup, her knees and elbows were scabby like a clumsy toddler's, and her arms had words written on them in black, sweat-smeared marker. Fuck you on her left arm and fuck God on her right. It was stupid and the sort of thing meant for attention, but she was beautiful, and I was in love. "Hey you okay?" she said. I was okay, but I worried if I was, she would leave. I said, "What happened?" "You got plowed by a fucking truck, man," she said. "Hey Dee Dee, this guy, he seems kind of out of it." "You better hope he's okay, asshole," the girl called Dee Dee said to the driver. "If he's not, you'll be shitting out this skate." I feared if I didn't get up, she'd hold true to her words, so I stood. The girls were impressed with my resilience. They took me out for some beers at a bar full of guys with arms as thick as my neck and women with arms as thick as my neck. I was 22, had recently flunked out of college for the second time, lived with my mother in the house I was raised in, and was wearing a sweater I had since high school that had a picture of a reindeer on it. But two beautiful women were buying me drinks, so you'd think I'd be feeling good, and I was, but part of me expected the worst, that they'd invited me here as a trick, that any minute some goon with an American flag tattooed on his bald head would take away my pants or shoes. We drank pitchers of beer. They told me they thought my reindeer sweater was adorable, and they drew a roller skate on my neck with the magic marker. I don't remember what we talked about, but it was more important than the weather. Or maybe it was the weather, but I remember they laughed at things I said, and we played time after time, over and over again on the jukebox. And for the first time in my life, I danced with someone besides myself in front of the mirror, and I felt I could become a new person. Someone who didn't need college, who could change motor oil by himself, who could walk into a bar in the middle of Phoenix or Detroit or Scott City and not feel self-conscious about my skinny arms or fat belly, and be comfortable enough to talk to beautiful women, or ugly women for that matter if I wanted, and be the kind of guy who tells the kind of guy who says things to women like, "Hey, you got a nice ass, sweetie," to have some fucking respect. And after Sam came home with me to my mother's house, and we made love in the same bed I'd slept in for a decade, she had cigarette burns on her ass, and it made me think it must have been a conscious effort on her part to go home with a guy like me, someone who wouldn't scar her ass. And she stayed over nearly every night for 3 weeks, until my mother lent us the money to get a place of our own, a tiny apartment above a hardware store where I'd spend my mornings talking to the owner, learning how to do things like caulk tubs and replace electrical outlets. But I don't tell any of this to Daisy. I work at the wastewater treatment plant here at McMurdo, monitoring the station and flushing treated waste back into the ocean underneath a sheet of ice 5 feet thick. I filter large, untreatable things from the tank, like tampons, big chunks of corn, and condoms. This I've told Daisy about, and for the last couple weeks, she's been flushing letters down the toilet enclosed in condoms. It's given me something to look forward to. The condom messages tell me things she'd like me to do to her, or things that she'd like to do to me. Things that involve ice and scarves, things that involve positions I'm not familiar with or capable of. I'd like to believe she means every word she's written, but she doesn't say these things in person. So maybe she's just trying to give me a thrill or provide community service for a lonely guy. I know myself and I know my odds. I know I've been blessed once already in my life with the woman far out of my league, so it's hard for me to believe what she writes in these messages. She knocks back the rest of her jack, and it's my turn for the next round, but some Air Force guy steps in between us so that his ass is touching my knee. He's probably been waiting right behind her for 15 minutes, watching for the moment she puts her empty glass down. What'll you be having, sweetheart?" he says, as though she has no other option than to have something. She gives me a look, and I don't know what it means, if it means anything. Maybe she wants me to intervene in some way, or maybe not. But I don't know how to react, so I don't. Nonetheless, I am surprised when she tells the guy she'll have another double jack. No one here much likes the military guys. They have the wrong mentality for the place. Too macho, too exclusive, except when they're at the bar making passes at women. They try the same shit they try to pick up women in Seoul or Manila, except they fail miserably nearly every time here, because in a place where 3 out of every 4 people are guys, there's no reason for a pretty girl to fall for that. The Air Force guy turns and acknowledges my presence. Can't a guy get some service from this menopausal bitch? He's talking about this evening's bartender, Janet, who is also McMurdo's hairstylist, and someone I eat breakfast with on occasion. But I don't oppose his comment. He's a tall guy with a square head, the kind of guy you'd know was in the military, even if you didn't know he was in the military. He's wearing a shirt with the phrase, "I make good babies," across the front. He's younger than me, but strikes me as too old to wear a shirt like that. And I can't help but think of what a kick Sam would have gotten out of this guy in a stupid shirt. We would have laughed about it later in the night, and while we were kissing but before we made love, she probably would have said to me, "Wait, do you make good babies?" I take a 20 out of my wallet, and when Janet comes around, she takes my order before she takes the makes good babies guys. I order drinks for me and Daisy, and I don't know why I do it, but I ask Janet to get the guy a drink too. He orders the worst kind of beer on station, seedy. It's 3 years old, flat, tastes like metal, the beer anyone who has been around here any time at all knows better than to order. He nods in appreciation, but then turns back toward Daisy. I wonder if it is obvious Daisy and I aren't a couple, or if this guy just doesn't care. My brother Jack is in the Army. He's a major and works at a desk in D.C. now. He's married to a Japanese woman, has twin boys who are all district cross-country runners, drives a half-ton Ford pickup, and has a globe in his living room made out of things like gold and quartz. I paid him a visit a couple years back, right before I first came down here. "Michael," he told me over coffee one morning, "I think this change will be good for you." I was surprised when he joined ROTC as a sophomore in college. Before that, he played the bass guitar in a funk band. Sometimes people change for the better, and sometimes they just do different things. I found myself surprised by what we're capable of. My brother is responsible for the deaths of dozens of people. I've seen the awards and certificates that prove it. Me, I'm capable of punching a woman in the stomach. The Air Force guy introduces himself to Daisy as Rock. Probably short for where he's from, Rockford or something, or probably no one calls him that at all. It's a name both so stupid and fitting, I can't help but laugh out loud. Neither of them pays any attention to me. "What's your name, sweetheart?" he says, and when she tells him, he says she is as pretty as a flower, though I somehow doubt this guy really finds beauty in flowers. Another Air Force guy, seeing his buddy is having some luck, starts hanging around us, waiting for Rock to strike out, or hoping Daisy has a friend besides me. He's standing there waiting with a stupid grin that makes me think of a used car salesman. He's got a face like Abraham Lincoln, but it's obvious even he has more confidence than me, and I imagine, as sad as it is, his waiting game has worked for him at least once in his life. Me and Sam used to sit in the back of bars and watch other couples or potential couples and make up stories about them. "See that couple at the end of the bar?" she might say, "the older guy with the frosted tips and the girl in the denim jacket? She's his law partner's daughter. They came to this shithole so no one from the firm would see them. They stopped off at JCPenney on the way, and he bought that leather jacket to fit in with the rough crowd here. Not a crease or scratch on it. What about his boots, I might say? She had him give some guy in the parking lot $200 for them. Come on, she had him do it? Yeah, you can tell she's in control. She's done the seducing. Probably a way to get back at Daddy for years of violin lessons. Look at how much she's touching him. It can't be completely sincere. There's no way a girl that pretty could be into a guy with frosted tips." Sometimes we'd go home and make love, but often we'd be too drunk and would fall asleep in each other's arms after I'd unsuccessfully fumble with the belt under her fattening belly. But let me tell you, that's real love, when you still wake up satisfied the next morning, when your face is pressed into her armpit and the smell of her drool makes you happy. But we were fighting more and more. It doesn't matter what the fights were about, just that any conversation when we were drunk enough had the potential to take that turn. A lot of it came down to one of us trying to make the other feel as bad as we felt at the time. This one time, and I don't know what the fight was over, but I don't think it was any more spectacular than the others, I punched her in the stomach. I'd like to say I don't remember doing that, but I do remember, and I remember that something about it felt natural. Rock is saying something into Daisy's ear. I can't hear what it is, but I imagine and hope it is something rude. I hope he crosses the line and asks her about making good babies, or if her scarf matches her panties. He is close enough to me that I can smell him, and he smells too good to be here. We work hard and aren't allowed to shower often. The National Science Foundation asks this of us. We grow used to it. No need for cologne or high-endurance body wash, but he smells like a fucking 16-year-old on his way to homecoming. Apparently he hasn't crossed the line yet because she smiles at whatever he tells her and then says something back that means nothing to me, the name of a store or a species of tropical bird maybe. Now I am feeling like a creep, like this other Air Force guy, Lincoln, who's also still watching the two of them. It crosses my mind to buy him a beer. CDs for everyone, I tell Janet. Lincoln nods in appreciation, and then his eyes are back on Daisy and Rock. My eyes go back to them too. He's moved closer to her, but she hasn't moved an inch. So who's this guy? Rock says to Daisy about me. Your boss or your dad or something? His laugh sounds like a worn fan belt. He's a pen pal, she says. That comment should be flattering given the condom messages, but I can't imagine it sounds flattering about me to Rock, which is maybe more important. It's guys like this I used to imagine mistreated women. This one night a couple years ago, me and Sam were drunk, of course, drunk on fine beer from some wine bar downtown, Belgian beer that smelled like cherries and earth. They were wonderful, but we had a fight. Why is it that your worst nights happen on the nights you try hardest to make nights? Even if I remembered what that particular fight was over, there's no point in elaborating my meanness any further. I'll tell you it was raining, and I ended up locked out of the house. I stood in the yard yelling, punching our birch tree until my hand bled, apologizing, telling her I could cook like a Polish grandmother for fuck's sake. And then I apologized more, and then I yelled some more. Eventually, I fell asleep in the rain. What kind of wild animal exists that doesn't even have enough sense to get out of the rain? Let me say that usually after nights like that, neither of us were still upset or embarrassed. We would just go on living. I'd still hold her hand in line at the store, and she'd still rub my neck while we watched game shows after work. But the morning after that fight, when I walked through the unlocked door, wet and feeling like I was hit by a truck, Sam was sitting at the kitchen table, not looking upset, but looking like something. I still can't describe it, but it wasn't sad, and it wasn't good. We'll be miserable with or without each other, she told me, but if we go on, we'll kill each other. She didn't leave that day, or even the next day, but I knew things were over, and she was right about the miserable part. Rock unlaces the scarf from Daisy's neck. His fingers are meatier than my thumbs, and he strings it around his own. This makes Daisy smile. I don't know why you've been depriving the world of seeing something so beautiful as your neck, Rock says. She's getting dangerously drunk, but the thing is, there is no dangerously drunk here. All the dorms are a couple 100 yards or so from the bar. It's continuously high noon. It's the safest place on earth. The bar is starting to get crowded. It usually does near last call, with some people desperately searching for companionship and others avoiding it. Janet is pouring drinks generously, and people here appreciate that. It's the saddest place on earth. Rock tells Daisy about all the great places he's seen serving Uncle Sam. Beautiful beaches in Japan and Guam. And then he says to her, I've got a few beers over in 202. You want to get out of here? He takes a step back from the bar, prepared to leave. I also got some habu sake a buddy of mine shipped down from Okinawa. Just wait till you hear the stories I have involving that shit. Something comes over me, and I say, the thing about shit. Rock stops talking and they all turn, their eyes fixed on me, waiting for what I'll say next. And I wait too, until I realize there is absolutely nothing else I want to say. Then Daisy puts a hand back on my shoulder. I still can't bring myself to look directly into her face, so instead I look at the scar on her neck. It makes me think about the scar that ran the length of Sam's knee, and about how often I would touch it, even years after surgery, and how a reminder of someone's pain makes it somehow easier to love them. And I have the desire to run my fingers along Daisy's scar, but I know I would feel ridiculous doing it, even though I could see someone like Rock doing it and saying something like, "What happened here? You get a hickey from an angel?" and it's seeming normal. And then I realize her hand is on my shoulder so she can balance herself as she stands. She leans in closer to me and says, "Keep an eye out for another letter." She doesn't wait for my response, and as I watch her and Rock walk out together into the sunshine, her leaning into him with her arm around his waist for stability, I lay money on the bar for one more drink and do my best not to think about what'll go on when they get to 202. I don't know if he'll be gentleman enough to offer the drink he promised, if he'll rub his fingers across her scar, or if he'll cover it with his hand. I do know I'll be right here tomorrow, in this exact seat, waiting. Thank you.